Hi, welcome to Living with Sunny and my co-host Thomas Power. Today we have a wonderful guest called Eric Yaverbaum. Eric's life is phenomenal, and as we talk to him, we realize, as accomplished as he is a very fast thinker, but a very humble person. Just listening to him is like I have to keep up with him. And I am younger than him. I won't say by how many years. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm a big fan. Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the show, Eric.
Thank you.
So, Eric, one of the things that I see in you is a wonderful leader. A leader, I think, who leads by example, a leader who's humble. You've accomplished a lot. Yet you don't brag about it. You've accomplished a lot, yet you feel that this is just learning as you go. And one thing you said, always do something you love. Otherwise, life is too tough and too boring. Yeah. So when it comes to leaders, how would you describe the whole idea of leadership? What for you is a leader? What for you is leadership?
No, for me, when I was a kid in this industry, I used to always lament over the fact that, I'm just a PR guy. Even as a PR guy, I grew a big agency, which Wall Street eventually bought. We had big clients. Sony was a client, IKEA, H&M, Progressive. I had big clients, famous clients. It didn't matter who they were in corporate America. The PR function reports to the director of PR, who reports to the senior director, who reports to the VP of marketing, who reports to you never get in a chairman's office, let alone sit on a board. And I sit on 11 now. I was fascinated by leadership in general. One, because I had no access to it as a quote unquote PR practitioner. And two was, how did people do that successfully? What made for a successful leader? Versus somebody who wasn't as good. And when I was a kid growing up in the city, professionally this is, I was invited to join the Young Presidents Organization, which I eventually ended up chairing for a decade. And inside of YPO, and everybody was famous in YPO. Everybody but me. I always thought, oh boy, they must have made a mistake when they invited me in. But you knew everybody. Massimo Ferragamo, William Lauder, the Malkin family, the Only Empire State Building. There was a who's who of, power in New York City. And I joined that organization to understand, what did it take to become a successful leader, which was elusive. I couldn't, there was no formula that I could figure from it. And all my exposure and all my years there. And my biggest, I'm writing my 8th book right now, but my biggest of the books that I wrote was a book called Leadership Secrets of the World's Most Successful CEOs. Leadership Secrets of the World's Most Successful CEOs is more of my pursuit of trying to understand what makes for a great leader. And even in writing that book, I had access to absolutely anybody. Everybody wanted to be in that book. It's 100 chapters of who's who, of power, influence, wealth, you name it. And I asked the same 4 questions to everybody. That made up their individual chapters, 100 chapters. And everybody answered the questions differently. And the formula that I always looked for, I go and find it, didn't exist. My formula for me, all that I found for myself is being myself. Everybody talks about being transparent in a world of social media where everyone's smiling and happy 24/7, which is just not possible. Everything about my success, which is constantly chronicled in the press on purpose. We make sure that we're out there. All of those successes, and we could talk for hours and I'll never touch on all of them. None of them are me. They're all everybody else. I'm just the guy who talks about them. So I don't know if I don't brag or not. I'm not sure. My mother might beg to differ.
Eric, one thing that strikes out to me is that you're a very curious individual. Before I go into that, if you look at one of the things you mentioned was that do what you love. Talk about, especially the youth of today and people today, they try to get the best job possible. They try to make the best money possible. In the process, I think they sell a little bit of their soul in the process. because I
hey,
believe, I believe that, you should be passionate, but even better, if you can do what you love versus what you're passionate, that's the ultimate. Talk about that, please.
if you love what you do, if you can find something that you genuinely enjoy. I mean, you know what I get to do every day? Man, I get to do some good, I get to change history I get paid for it. I have traipsed in and out of history for 40 years and I'm paid for that. Like, it's kind of a joke to me. Well, I cannot believe. And I keep getting paid more. And my opinion is more revered. It's phenomenal. I found something I absolutely love, and I got to end the baseball strike in '85, and I got to get stem cell legislation passed through the House. In the late '80s, I got to change the way water is bottled in this country. I've done so many great things, and I am not nearly done yet, and I love that.
So, Eric, can I ask, based on that answer, are you a PR guy, or are you actually a historian?
History. I'm lifting this.
Changing history is a big statement.
Well, history will be kind to me, for I intend to write it, as Winston Churchill once said. I literally, we talked a little bit about that. Down the street from me, I'm on 42nd Street. We were very involved in opening One Vanderbilt. One Vanderbilt has something called Summit. Summit will change the New York, not will, I don't have to say will anymore. That's what I was saying last year or the year before. It changed the New York City skyline. It's that building, the fact that it opened, it's beautiful. Google that building, read about what's going on there. See all the visiting dignitaries, including we had Boris Johnson was there. Just one visiting dignitary after another. Pre-opening, it's open now. That's an inflection point in a pandemic in New York City. I get to be involved in that. I get to help bring my city back, make this city better than it was before the pandemic. I'm paid for this. What an honor to be involved in something like that.
Eric, can I ask you, we now live in this world of endless information on endless channels in real time, all the time, flooding us, whether it's Reddit or Twitter or Facebook or the media or Fox or SIP. How do you filter the noise now when everything is pouring at us in real time? And it's very hard to validate and ascertain what is reliable information and what isn't. How do you filter?
What I have always said about decision making is when you come to a fork in the road, take it. Pick right, pick left. Don't just stand there staring for days and days while you're trying to figure out which way to go. Take it. Go one way or the other. You use your own guttural instincts, your own experience in life. What artificial intelligence is doing is it's steering us in the direction that we're predisposed to going in already, which is why, we'll just take Facebook as an example. Your algorithm on Facebook, you're always going to see information that you're predisposed to believing, because that's how the algorithm works. That's what artificial intelligence is. You don't see the other side. I think it's incumbent on us, all of us, if we want to get accurate information, we have to have a plethora of sources to do that. I still watch TV. I still read a newspaper. I know I'm a dying breed. I also, I was one of the original Huffington Post bloggers when everyone said, "What's a blogger?" You have to find information, and you have to be willing to hear both sides from different. It's very polarizing in the United States. Definitely, I do turn on multiple channels because I want to hear. It can't just be, what am I missing here? I want to hear all sides before I make a decision. And I think everybody needs to do that.
We're growing in a social media environment. You know the ins and outs and the entire machinery of the PR side of things. And you know how PR works and how points of views are expressed. It's one thing if adults are getting swayed or forming an opinion just listening to a channel or a point of view. But it comes to our kids. What are we doing to them, given the new world of PR, the new world of social media? What are we doing to our kids? Because they're going to be becoming, they'll be growing and becoming something very different from the world that you and I grew up in. And that bothers me.
Yeah.
What is your thoughts on that?
Well, justifiably so. It bothers me too. Another company I started called Offline. I did when my kids were young, because this is what I realized at the dinner table. And it's funny, it comes up in my Facebook memories because we launched it for Thanksgiving, which in the United States is tomorrow. The social skills and lack thereof, and the way our kids are being developed, their development skills, their communication is awful, and it's only getting worse. And it's very, very concerning to me, as is artificial intelligence, as is social media. I mean, all this information that's coming to light about Facebook in particular is wildly unsurprising to me. It's detrimental to good mental health. That said, it's not going away. So we hopefully, while we're still here, can figure out ways to put up some guardrails so that everybody can play a little bit safer, and that the world does not go in a direction where we don't talk to each other. I don't want to have, I cannot, I'm in communications for a living. This is what I do. I have to have the ability to somehow get you interested in the story that I'm talking about. If I had to text it to you, I wouldn't be doing this for a living. I'd probably still be a shy guy.
It is fascinating, isn't it, Sonny? Because we're fearful of, as Eric says, of the detrimental side, the mental health side of social media. We're fearful of these algorithms, but then we sound like the grumpy old men, because surely the new world will be a better world. But now we're all nervous. I now hear metaverse. Now we're fearful of this new world, of perhaps losing control of our kids in this metaverse. What's your take, Eric?
Well, this is one, parents. It's like, I have the same exact concerns. I'm worried about the world that I will leave my kids and generations that follow us. This is what I have to say about technology. Is we are supposed to use technology. Technology is not supposed to use us. Let's use Instagram as an example. Every single solitary day, I'll do a post of my workout. I hope I can inspire a few people along the way. I think I have. I use it to keep myself accountable. So I'm using it. It's not using me. And yeah, I'm smiling every damn day. And whatever the picture of the day is and whatever the workout is, when I'm playing basketball, lifting, whatever it is, I'm happy, which actually is true. The thing, not 24/7, nobody is how do we as individuals, because there's not going to be any, let's do that or let's do this. It's just not going to happen. Realistically, technology is getting faster and faster and faster, and we are getting used faster and faster and faster. We cannot, as human beings, keep pace with the technology. So the big question to ask yourself individually is, are you using your technology, or is your technology using you? When you pass the point where the technology is using you, stop using it.
But Eric, what's happening is that it's like frying the frog 1 degree at a time, and you're fried before you know it. And that's what's happening to our kids. And I will make a commitment to you over here, is that if whatever you do, and if you do, or more of it, when it comes to youth and communications and creating a better world for them, I'll be a willing accomplice and partner up with you.
Well, yeah, that's the frog example is a perfect example. It's literally what's happening. What we are all in the boiling water, and we don't know it's boiling. It's not, it's the other night I'm just strolling in New York City. This is last week. I was on a Wednesday night. It's 65 degrees. I don't care what you want to call, what label you give to the climate is just different than it used to be. It's just changing. Stuff's different. Global warming was a terrible headline. Terrible name. It's just different. I don't know, 65 degrees. It's supposed to be winter right now. It's not. It's nicer than spring. How do we take advantage and how do we deal with reality? And part of, so we can say the climate's not changing, but, it was never, when I was a kid in the 60s, there was no 60 degrees days heading into December. Never. We had snowstorms. We didn't have spring. That for me, that's the reality that I live in. It's the same thing with social media. It's the same thing with digital media. I mean, I'm surrounded by screens and TVs, so I can monitor or try to keep my finger to the pulse the best I can, figure out what's accurate and what's not. But the world is going to be more like that than it is like it was. So how do we make that work for our kids? And I think it's incumbent on parents in particular, for our generation, to make sure that one, and, I think there's a growing number of, I'll call them kids for, I don't know, everybody's a kid to me, but for lack of a better adjective, I think there's a greater awareness of how technology is manipulating us. And along with that awareness comes a little bit of resistance and a little bit of education. I think we need a lot more of both, a lot more resistance. It doesn't mean not to use the tools, because I'm definitely going to use them, but it does mean not to take, people look, the pandemic didn't help. Everybody stayed home, and now nobody wants to come out anymore. And it's hard to know. I mean, numbers are up, numbers are down, vaccines work. I mean, I had COVID twice. I can tell you it's real. That's my own perspective. I got a vaccine. I'm too nervous not to get a vaccine. It turns out where I live in New York State, you can't go anywhere without one anyway. I got the booster. I don't want to get it again. I almost died. That's my opinion. Everybody can have their own. But
so, Eric, can I ask you, if you mentioned social media is detrimental to mental health, Sony's focus is all about well-being. Is big tech killing the next generation?
Well, they could help the next generation.
They could help, but do you feel right now that they're killing the next generation?
Just like it always was, even in our day, it's always about money. So, greed and power, they always corrupt, they always pollute, they always have, always. Every generation can say that. Greed and power, they pollute. So
big tech is too big.
Well, their vested interest is in more clicks. Their vested interest is in more, e-commerce. That's how they make a living. The thing is that when do the Facebooks of the world say enough is enough?
Eric, if there was one thing or one word that defines you, what would that be?
Well, it would depend who you would ask. I would say resilience. And, the thing about life is, which I tell my kids, I tell everybody who's worked, I tell anybody who ever come to me for advice, life will bring you to your knees if you let it. There's no exceptions. At the end of the day, we all get the same 86,400 seconds in a day. All of us, doesn't matter what we have or don't have. We literally get the same 86,400 seconds. We get to pick what we do, with those seconds. I'm going to take them. Give them all to me. I'll take every damn one of them. Why wouldn't I? Everybody gets that, option. I learned resilience the hard way, which is the only way to do it. You got to touch some fires in your life. You just do that. Your greatest lessons will always be learned there. And what you will find when you do find yourself, in those situations in life, is the power is 100% in your reaction. And if you think about that in those times and how you're reacting, you'll change your entire life. I can tell you that if there's a fire, come in it with me. We will all walk out of it completely fine every single solitary time. I've been doing that my whole life. It always works out in the end. I count on that.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful finish. That is beautiful.
No, thank you.
Eric, my last question for you. What's the change you want to see in the world today?
I think we need to learn how to talk again. I mean, we need to know that we do have different opinions, that there's no crystal clear answers to any of the questions that a lot of us have, but there is a lot of smart people, and we really need all the smart people in the same room talking to each other productively, not screaming at each other, not yelling at each other. I mean, look, in the city that I live in, things are a little touchy, and they don't need to be. At the end, we're all going to the same place in the end, all of us. We all have one single life. That's it. take care of yourself, take care of your family if you can. We're all literally have the same 86,400 seconds. Take them all.
And when I talk to anybody, I look at them and talk to them from a lens of holistic well-being. And this is what jumps out at me about you. You love what you do. You live life. Resilience is a great trait of holistic well-being. For your physical well-being, you work out. You're highly social. You believe in giving back to society. And most importantly, you celebrate life. That's how you are living holistic well-being. You might not even think in those terms, but that's how you live holistic well-being.
Literally, I think exactly in those terms. Today's a damn good day. That wouldn't matter what day we were talking. And I do believe, the give back part of it, which is why I say spreading hope is so priceless. The give back is so important. Everybody is in such a rush to make money and, get more cars or bigger houses or whatever it is that you want. The joy is not the stuff. The joy is it's the process. It's the journey. It's not the destination. The destinations will always be a little bit disappointing, or you'll just get. I live in the skyline in New York City. I literally live in the skyline. I don't even notice it. I've lived here. I'm like the frog in the water. I don't even notice it. You come into my place, look out my living room window. You say, "Oh my God, there's that, there's that, there's that." Every single solitary night, you get used to stuff. It's not stuff. It's the journey itself. It's the process. And yes, I get immense joy out of the journey.
And I want our audience to pay real good attention to this part that we just discussed, that, Eric lives from joy. Eric is holistic well-being. And it has come out so nicely and clearly that everything you do in life is stemming from living a life from joy, finding joy in everything, and living through holistic well-being. Eric Yaverbaum. Eric, what a delight. I could talk to you for hours. And I look forward to our next conversation, whether we are breaking bread or having a glass of wine or whatever else. Thank you again for being on the show. It's been a real pleasure.
Been an honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Brilliant.
Thank you.